So last weekend was pretty sweet. I went to the calling in Memphis, and spoiler alert,
Brian Hoffman takes the game. The miracle run continues.
it went pretty well. So I thought I'd just record a little thing and talk about it and talk through the matches and the trip and all that good stuff. A little bit about me and Flesh and Blood. I started last June after playing in a Magic the Gathering RC, having a pretty bad time for multiple reasons, my own middling performance not the least of which. And I don't even remember what compelled me to look into Flesh and Blood after I got home, but I'm just like a card game addict, and I think I saw that the Armory decks were a thing, and I'd always felt like the barrier was that getting into CC was really tough, and I was like, oh, hey, a way in. So I bought the KO deck, and the rest was history. I have been so cracked on the game ever since. As far as rated events go, I did the LL Chicago calling, bubbled out of day 2. Still a good time. And then I've played in a couple Battle Hardens, couple Pro Quests. I won a skirmish last season. And now we've got a calling top 4 on our resume. It's weird. So we played the Classic Constructed calling in Memphis last weekend. I played Aurora, and if you followed the coverage at all, you would have seen an Aurora in top 4, and that was me. It was an insane weekend. I literally can't believe that it happened. But now we're going to London in April, so I've got a lot of work to do to get my draft chops up. Suppose I should go over the list. I'll be honest, we had just taken Pudding Tam's list from the Battle Hardened in Hong Kong and changed like 3 cards. I decided to put the 3rd Lightning Surge in instead of a Sigil of Solace. I just wanted more attacks and less no blocks. And then we changed the Poison the Wells into Gravekeepings because Poison the Wells always felt awkward. Spoiler alert, Gravekeeping felt really awkward too. But the logic was that Gravekeeping, if new isn't on Count Your Blessings, because there was such a split on them, so like I didn't want Poison the Well into a regular new, and then we're just putting a blue no block in our deck. And then I figured that if we put in Gravekeeping and they weren't on CYB, at least we could maybe like hit a Leave No Witnesses or a relevant card in the graveyard so that they can't get it back with Codex. I had very little experience into Syndra leading up to the tournament, so I wasn't exactly sure what those decks were going to look like. But in my head, I was like, maybe they leave a dagger in the graveyard at some point and we can at least like threaten it with a Gravekeeping and make them have to pitch a blue on our turn, like put them in an awkward position or something. Overall, Gravekeeping felt really bad, and I have since cut them. I'm playing around with putting some Spell Void in the deck. I was thinking about Aether Ironweave combo to help with the Syndra matchup. We'll see. Anyway. So for the trip, left Thursday morning. We're from Chicago, so it's like an 8-hour drive. So I just road tripped it, picked up one of my good pals and playtesting partners, Yasu, and we just did the 8-hour drive. And then we picked up another buddy, Sean, at the airport, went to the Airbnb, and then Friday morning was day 1 of the calling. Day 1, round 1. Sit down across a Dawnblade Dorinthia, which, if you play Aurora, you might know that's not like the best matchup. We don't historically block the best, and if Dawnblade gets to get some counters on it, we're just like never winning that race. So I board in like all the blocks I can. I boarded out Lightning Presses because they don't block. I brought in all 6 of the D-Reacts, and truthfully, we probably saw the better end of our Channel Lightning Valley and Sigil of Suffering variants that match, but either way, we got there, so started the day 1-0 and beat a Dory, hell yeah. Round 2, we sit down against an Azuri, and I had to read the hero power. Like I said, been playing for 6 months. I was like semi-familiar that they did the kind of ninjutsu thing, but I was like, all right, I'll play it like the assassin match, I guess, so like, you know, D-reacts in, blocks in, and it seemed to work. Round 3, played into a new, and did not see CYB, so I'm assuming they weren't on it. And it was a fine game. The only really noteworthy thing is I had a turn where I went like Sword, Electrostatic Discharge to give it go again, Exude Confidence for 7. They blocked with a Command and Conquer and then tried to play a Sink Below out of Arsenal. And I was like, Exude is coming in for 7. And they were like, oh no. They ended up having their last card in hand was Codex of Frailty, so it was just like fully disastrous. And then we pretty handily took over the game after that. Round 4. Round 4 was a little interesting. So I was just sitting outside, right outside front of the hall. And I don't know how, but I didn't hear over the loudspeaker that they called the round. So the next time I went to check my phone, pairings were already up, and I was like, oh shit. So I sprinted into the hall. I looked at the clock. It was like 54 and 20 or something, so like 40-ish seconds since the clock had started. Run over to my table, which was like at the back of the room, naturally. By the time I like gotten to the table, the judge was already there. I like apologized. I don't know how I didn't hear the speaker, whatever. Sit down, and then the judge looks at the clock, and they're like, okay, well, it's been over a minute now, so you're gonna have to get an IP2. I was just like, oh, like that really sucks. So we start shuffling up. Like 30 seconds later, the judge comes back, and he's like, oh, actually, I got it wrong. IP is only after 5 minutes, so you're actually good. There's no penalty. Carry on with a normal game. I'm like, sweet, hell yeah, that's awesome. The judge comes back. He's like, actually, I'm really sorry. I did have it right the first time. You do get an IP2 because it was over a minute. And even my opponent was like, Judge, I saw my opponent like running into the room at like 30 seconds after the clock. I would rather they don't get the IP. And kudos to my opponent. That was like very kind of them to even say that at all. They didn't have to do that. They totally could have just taken the match equity, but instead they decided to be cool. So then the judge goes and confers with the head judge, and they come back a minute later and they say something to the effect of like, to most effectively maintain the integrity of the game, we're going to say no IP, carry on as normal. Fantastic. So my opponent's on Arachne Marionette, another deck that I shockingly don't have a ton of reps into, but I just go with my like assassin matchup heuristics, I guess. I bring in my blocks and my D-reacts, and we do end up getting there. Notably, I had a pretty significant punt on my first turn of the game. I would love to attribute it to me being like shook about the whole judge ruling thing, but that's not a good enough excuse. I should just play better. Really close game, really noble opponent of mine to, vouch for me in the clock issue there. But so then we were 4-0. Round 5, I paired into Brody Spurlock, who, if you might have known, won the tournament. So I played against Brody's like Redline Syndra, and I'm pretty sure I blocked like garbage. So we lose that game, and now we are 4-1 on the day. Round 6, we paired into an Acilio, and there was not a whole lot notable to this game. We like took a Mind Warp at some point and just sent a really good 3-card hand, and like we had CLVs and things were going our way. They didn't ultimately find a way to present a ton of damage to us, and we just kind of killed them. Round 7, we played into a Viscerai, and it was like such a grind. Oh my god. We were just going back and forth. I didn't see any Warmongers early in the game. Life totals get super low. Comes back to me in the penultimate turns of the game, and I'm looking at my hand, and I'm pretty sure it's lethal, with the caveat that my starter is Ravenous Rabble. So, of course, we lead on Ravenous Rabble, and it reveals the first Warmongers that I've seen all game to go again. Just sick rate. Opponent was then ultimately able to block out the turn and still, like, produce some rune chance to send back our way. We didn't bring Lightning Greaves into the matchup. We just stick on Snapdragons just to make our aggressive plan better. So when we drew up, we were at 2, and they sent 2 rune chance plus an attack, and we had to AB2 with the Warmongers on a single rune chant just to go to 1 and block out. And then the next turn we were able to convert the rest of our hand into lethal. But it was a close game, but we got there and ended 6-1 on day 1 for my first ever calling day 2. Whew, I felt so good. At this point, I was just like, oh, we made day 2, like, I'm cool. I'm sure I'm going to lose out tomorrow because everybody's like way better than me once we get to day 2. Like anything on top of this is just gravy. So at this point I was like, completely satisfied with the weekend, you know what I mean? We went and got some barbecue, had a good time. I don't even think we did any playtesting that night because I was just so exhausted from the 7 rounds of day 1. So went to bed that night. Notably did not get the best sleep that night because there was some street racing going on right outside of our Airbnb. So it was like Tokyo Drift until 3 in the morning. But that's okay. So woke up Saturday morning, day 2. My first day 2, X1, like very live for top 8. I'm fortunate enough to have a really cool team of friends and testing partners that are like just rooting for me in a Discord the whole time. It was awesome. So round 8, we find our first Zen of the day, and immediately, like beginning of day 2, find the Zen, and I'm like, all right, yeah, this is how the day is gonna go. Like I knew this was a matchup I had to be conscious of. I can't remember if the day 2 conversion rates were out yet. I think they had been spoiled, so I feel like we knew Zen did not convert super well into day 2. But even still, I was like, this is not the greatest matchup for me. But they must have had some awkward hands, and we presented some really annoying breakpoints because they had to give us 12-pedal Kasaya on like the second turn of the game, I want to say. They blocked the first chain link with it. I went to break the chain, so they had to pop Kasaya to get the Zen state or lose it forever, and I didn't even have Arc Lightning that turn, so I was able to just kind of stuff that. Admittedly, I had intended to take out Arc Lightning in that matchup, and I completely forgot. So probably, again, variance rewarded at that point for being able to make it so that the Zen state did not line up with Arc Lightning. And after that, it was pretty easy for us to take over the game. They blocked with Traverse pretty early too, so we were just like presenting a lot more damage than them, and we ended up taking that one. So won our first round of day 2. We're 7-1. I'm feeling insane. Then we move on to round 9, and now we queue into an Enigma. And I personally think that Aurora has a pretty good matchup into Enigma. My opponent did not, as far as I remember, play any Restless Coalescence. They were more just sending like Phantasmaclasms and things like that. So we ended up winning that game. However, there was another unfortunate mistake on our opponent's side where they blocked a first attack with Quick Dodge Flexors, Exude Confidence, hit the chain later on, and then they had attempted to use Flexors at a different point in the chain, and I had to remind them that yes, Exude Confidence does in fact stop you from using Quick Dodge Flexors as well. So there was a pretty disastrous moment for them in that game, and that ultimately did contribute probably to us winning the game, but we did win the game anyway. So 8-1 on day 2. Whew. Going into round 10, 8-1, and we find another Viscerai. And unlike the first one, which was like really close and grindy, I kind of did some disgusting things to this Viscerai. I won the die roll, opted to go first. My opening hand had a Warmonger's Diplomacy. It really messed up their going second turn. So I did like Pitch to Grasp and Warmongers with a card in Arsenal. Sent back to them. They had to Pitch to Grasp, a Malefic Incantation, and they played a Succumb to Temptation. No attack, just to make a 3rd rune chant, or just to make a 2nd rune chant. So their turn ended on 2 rune chants and a, I believe, yellow Malefic Incantation, which was just not nearly enough pressure. And then I was able to come back with a full 5-card hand, and it spiraled from there. We are now like looking really, really good for top 8. My friends were saying that I was locked. I wasn't sure because I don't know that math, but I was 9-1 at this point. Around 11, we found our first CYB new, and they did in fact count our blessings. I think I made some sideboarding errors here. I just presented 60 cards, which looking back is probably incorrect. Tried to go up on cards in deck, and maybe I would have been able to present enough damage, but they played really well, ended up in top 8 themselves, so that was putting us at 9-2 going into round 12. And I don't know if it's a win-in for me. I don't know if I would bubble out, so I'm just like, we gotta play as good as we can. I can't believe I'm even talking about being live for top 8 on my first calling day 2, my second ever calling. Like, doesn't feel real. But round 12 paired into another new. This one did not show me Contra Blessings, and we got there. We did another Shock Lethal on their turn when they had no cards, and I ended the Swiss rounds 10-2, and I made friggin' top 8, 3rd seed. Insane. Can't believe that I'm even saying that. Looked at the bracket and I saw that I was going to be up against a Kano, and I was like, hey, it's like I said, everything at this point was gravy. I'm perfectly fine with top 8. No shot I'm beating a Kano. I didn't bring Spell Void. Luckily for us, that match was streamed, and not only do I punt hard and give them an opportunity to kill me a second time, but my poor opponent, just the top of their deck did not cooperate with them, which is something Kano really needs it to do. They were revealing Fableds off of Kano activations and Kindles, and I was able to present enough damage to kill him on the 4th turn. The final turn of the game, you will see me coming in with 4-go again. They're at 1, and I ultimately let them draw off of an Open the Floodgates, turning on my Balance of Justice, which I do cash in for a card. They ended up not finding what they needed to kill me. I was at 33. I wasn't 100% certain that Kano didn't have any way to prevent 4 damage there. I knew they didn't have D-reacts, but I just wasn't certain if there was like a discard effect or some sort of wizardly shenanigans. And in my head, I was like, if they block this out and I AB2 and I have no cards in hand, and they're able to just like send it the turn back to me and draw up a new hand, there's no way I'm living at that point. That was my rationale, was like, maybe I let them draw these 2 cards, I go up to a 3rd card, if they try to combo off, I can still AB at that point and have 1 card left with my 4-go again. And I was like, I need to kill them this turn or I'm absolutely dead. So that was ultimately why I let them draw off the Open the Floodgates. It ended up being the wrong play, but didn't ultimately matter because they weren't able to draw into the combo, and I somehow won my quarterfinal match against Kano with 0 Spell Void, and then I was top 4. Insane. I'm still pooping thinking about it. Did have to play another Kano in top 4. That one went more like you would think it would, so ultimately did not go to the finals, but I am so over the moon happy with top 4ing my first Calling Day 2. We did get the black envelope. We did open it immediately, and I mean, it's not Flick Knives, but it's so pretty. I can't even be mad. Warbond of Baloney. So maybe come Monarch 3, this will really take off. But secured our PTI, immediately booked my flight to London, and now we've got a lot of work to do on Hunted Draft because my God, do I suck at Limited. But that was my trip to Memphis. I love this game. I can't believe I did something reasonable, and I'm going to work my ass off to keep them in my book.